Hello and welcome. Today we're going to talk about AMS risers. What are they? Do you really need them? And what purposes do they serve? So many people have different opinions on whether a riser is necessary, and do you really want to spend the time to print one? And everybody's situation will be different. Not one size fits all. First of all, let's talk about what a riser is. A riser is a piece that sits on top of the printer and it rises up to hold your AMS system. And there are many different variations and versions of these models. One of the big reasons that the risers became popular on the P2S series and the X1C series was due to the PTFE tube rubbing on the top glass. And that is one of the main reasons people started putting risers on there, because the PTFE tubes were constantly rubbing against the glass, which can over time can scratch the glass. It can also wear out the PTFE tubes. So that was one of the big reasons. The other is just for overall storage for build plates, tools, just having some place to put things, and having the AMS, up on top instead of being just on the glass. You can also take your glass out if you need to get in there and do service and stuff like that. Most of them have some type of a setup where you can raise this glass up. This one has some things here where you can slide it in and it leaves it open. It's not really necessary on most of the newer printers like the P2S and the X2D with their active chamber cooling. It's not quite as important as it was on like the P1S series, where you had to leave the door open or leave the the lid propped up or something like that. It's not as critical with these newer printers as it was on the older ones. But that's what the basics of what a riser is. And some of the features and why you might want to consider one, aside from what I already mentioned. I mean, having a nice place for your build plates, storage. You can put Gridfinity. I don't have mine fully. I have just a few in there. This particular model has a place where you can put some things here for your nozzles. These are just magnetic. I mean, you just stick your nozzles there. They're real easy to keep there where you can get to them. They're not stuck in a drawer somewhere. I like that myself. Everything, like I said, is personal preference. Some of the risers, not all of them, but some of them will have accessory ports. I like this particular riser myself. It is similar to the BLV, but different as well. But it has these dovetail slots. It has 2 on each side, and it has 2 or 4 in the back. And on this side, it has an external spool holder, which from there goes to a 4-to-1 in the back. I can also set a filament dryer box down here on the table and run it up to the 4-to-1 as well. You can also feed in TPU through this side right here and straight into the extruder. So there's a bunch of different things that you can do with it. So to look at, this one right here, which was my P2S, I took the riser off of this one and actually put on the X2D. And I'm thinking about printing out another one for this. One of the reasons why some people will go with a riser versus a flipper, Flippers are nice. They take less filament, and if your situation allows, then it might be better for you. I personally like the storage and liked all the accessory options with the riser itself. But some people's installation where you have a wall really close in the back, you don't have no room for the AMS to even flip up. So for some people, that's just not going to be an option. And this one right here, since it's been moved and it's sitting over here out in the open, I could get by with a flipper on this particular printer here now. You know, that would work just fine, but I'm still debating. And, you know, having it out here in the open, which I've never had before, you know, you have access to the back and you can, you know, get to the printer and everything pretty easily. That's not always the case. You know, if you've got, you know, printers, you know, up here right up against the wall, you don't have no room to do a flipper. So having a riser of some sort, you know, fills that option pretty well. So let's talk about if you decide that you are going to do a riser. It's a very, very long, and it's a commitment that you have to think about, and you have to really plan for and understand what's involved if you're going to do a riser, because these things take a long time to print. Even this one, this is one of the fastest and quickest, except for the little small, you know, the ones that only, you know, raise up about, you know, maybe an inch or two. Those are obviously quicker, but for a full-size riser like this is probably takes the less amount of filament, and it's the quickest to print. These are printed in PETG high flow, but I have also printed them in ASA before. I don't really see that it's that necessary. I mean, yes, the temperatures do get a little warm up here on the top glass, but so far I haven't had any issues with this particular model, and the PETG seems to work just fine. If you want to print it out in ABS or ASA, you definitely can do that. But make sure you look at the model and the printing requirements. Some of them are, you have to actually go and open up the model and see how many grams of filament it's going to take. Some of them, they tell you up front. Some of these models can take over 200 hours to print out, and that's a long time. And if you've only got one printer, I mean, you're going to have your printer tied up for a very long period of time. Now, you can print out, you know, one piece at a time every now and then, but I keep most of these printers running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if I decide to take on something like this, I have two options. I can print out using all the printers at one time, or I can just dedicate one printer to it. You know, if you're printing it in 3 or 4 printers, yes, you're going to complete it in a lot quicker time. But most of these, like this riser here, is in 4 parts. The main part of it is in 4 parts. So each part can take anywhere between 12 to 16, 18 hours for one section. And that's going to take a lot of time and a lot of filament. Some of these can take up to 3 kilograms of filament just for the main body. That doesn't include the drawers or any of the other attachments or any gridfinity or anything like that, just for the main outside structure. So anyway, that's something to really keep in mind when you decide to go down this process. Is it something that you're really ready to dedicate not only the filament to, but the time and the effort? Make sure your filament is very well tuned. I've had very good luck. I've got very good tuned profiles, and I've printed out a total of, I believe, this makes my fourth one of these risers. I printed out this is the first one for the version 3 for the P2S, but for the P1S I've printed out 3, and for this one I've printed out 1. This is the AMS Riser version 3. I forget the guy's name, MCY 040 something, I forget, but anyway, it's AMS Riser version 3 for P2S, and it fits on the X2D just fine. Color wise, actually the color is fairly good. The X2D is slightly darker than the P2S. The P2S, depending on your lighting, every if you look in the front, it looks real light. Sometimes it just depends on the lighting, but it is actually a darker gray. So looking at this filament right here, this is Sunlu. I think they call it just Sunlu Gray, high speed matte PETG, and this one here I'm just about out of. But this is a very, very close match to the P2S. This is some new filament that I just got in, and I'm drying it right now. This is Insologic, which is a sub-brand of Sunlu. It's also very, very close. I mean, matter of fact, I would say these two are probably identical. They're probably made in the same factory. So if you want something that matches pretty close, this is Bamboo's Gray. This is their dark gray. It's also very close. To me, there's no difference between it or the Sunlu or the Insologic. They're both pretty much exactly the same. It may not come across on the camera that way, but they're pretty much exactly the same color. So if you want something that matches pretty close, get Bamboo Labs dark gray if you can find it, or the Insologic, which I just picked up a couple of rolls. And actually, that was on sale. It surprised me. It was $15.99 on Amazon, only for that color. All the other ones were $22. And on this one, I did this myself. That normally doesn't come this way, but I did I think it's a 1mm thick accent color, and I used light gray. I used the Bamboo Lab light gray for that. And I also did a little trim around the doors, everything, just to give it a little bit of accent. You don't have to do that, but I used in the slicer to do that. I used the paint function, and I used it by height. So you find out what the total height is of the model, and then you set it for 1mm or whatever, however deep you want it, but in my opinion 1mm is plenty deep enough, and you select a different color for that, and you set that from the very top, and you set it down 1mm, and then it'll print, what is that, that'll be about 5, depending on your layer height. This one here is actually printed in a 0.2 layer height. Some of these models are printed in smaller layer height. That's one reason why it takes a lot longer. But this one, that would be 5 layers at 0.2 to make 1mm, which is plenty enough to give it a nice color, and it doesn't look faded or anything like that. So anyway, I don't know what else to say about the risers, but the most important thing is whether you need it or not, that's up to you. If you got it out in the open, kind of like this one, you may not need it unless you just want the storage aspect of it. You can get by with a flipper or some other type. It's not absolutely necessary, but a lot of people do like them. This one here, I have I forget what they call this, I think this is called a filament a guide. That also helps hold the PTFE off of the glass, but having the riser also helps a lot with that. I'm probably going to print one for this. And I just like the accessories. I like having the spool holder, you know, over here on the side. If I want to hook a dry box to it, I can do that, and having all the different attachment points. This is probably my favorite right here. This is where I hang my alcohol bottle, and this is actually a model that you know, I designed. It was an early version of one, and it was actually for a spool holder, but I strictly, instead of throwing it away, I put it over here and hang my alcohol bottle on it. But I've got extra, you know, mounts back there. They make tool holders. They make all kind of accessories for this. And all the BLV accessories fits this as well. That spool holder mount back there, I designed that one as well. This part here is from the maker of this mat, but the actual mount, I designed that one. But anyway, that's about all I have to say for it. If you're thinking about getting a riser, they can be very handy. I like them, and it doesn't take me very much. Like if I need to take this thing and take it off, I can literally have this thing off in about probably a minute or minute and a half. I've got to disconnect the PTFE tube, disconnect the 6-pin connector from the AMS. I pull it off, take the spool holder off, and then I pick the whole riser up with the glass, everything in it, and move it. And I can have access in here to literally within less than 2 minutes, probably about a minute, minute and a half. So it's not that big of a deal if you need to get in there, but you can do some stuff even with just taking the glass out. You can get in there to do some maintenance. But if you need to take the whole thing off, it's not that big of a deal. So anyway, I hope this might, you know, help somebody, give you some ideas of what to expect. Like I said, for the P2S and for the X2D, I specifically like this model. It doesn't come all the way, kind of hard to see here, but it doesn't come all the way to the front like some of them do. It stops back here, and it just fits down inside the lip of the already place for the glass. And one of the things that drew me to this specific model was the fact that it didn't take as long to print. Less supports. There still are some supports, but less supports and less total filament and less total time. So your mileage might vary. The things that you like might vary, but it doesn't matter which model you pick. The most important thing is before you start the project is just to remember how long it takes. And once you start it, you know, you're pretty much, you know, you're into it, and it's going to take some time, some patience, and I think it's worth it in the end once you get done. I like the way they look. I think it looks good. I think it's, if I need to grab, you know, my tools are right here, you know, spare parts, everything is right here. So, all right, well, I'm going to cut this one off, and stay tuned. We'll catch you on the next one.